Greetings, everybody. It's Jim. When I seen the cover for this in Aries magazine when I was a kid, it caught my attention. And why wouldn't it? Exciting cover. And the name of the title, The Return of the Stainless Steel Rat. I mean, what the heck is that? That's like Henry Cobb's adventure for the fantasy trip called Amazons of the Sky Turtle. You just have to investigate. So, of course, I asked around, well, what's this about and stuff, and they said it was a really good series. Okay, now today, the thing is, in this magazine, not only does it give you a game, a solitaire game for the Return of the Stainless Steel Rat, it actually gives you a 4-page snippet. Well, it's a complete story, but it's just a very 5-minute movie almost of would give you all the idea of what the Stainless Steel Rat is all about a guy called Jim DeGrees, which is kind of a mercenary, kind of low life kind of guy. It's pretty interesting, and it's written in the 1950s style, but I'll get into that in a little bit, because today I'm going to be going over with you The Return of the Stainless Steel Rat by SPI. And just to let you know or remind you, Dungeon Runner, my game of solitaire fantasy adventure, is available on Kickstarter right now. There's 27 decks in all, but you don't need any of the previous ones to play. You can jump right in on this Kickstarter with Dungeon Runner. Check the link down below. So when I first heard of the Stainless Steel Rat, I thought it was actually more of a modern series, in the 1980s or something like that. But even today I did. And then I started reading it, that little 4-page episode that's in the Aries magazine. And then I started to notice that, oh no, this is a much older book. You could tell as soon as the scientists start talking. As soon as they say something that starts or ends a sentence with, "I tell you," that's a hint. They all talk like that. I swear they must have. I love it. But it's a very good, easy read. Reading that 4-page episode gives you all the ideas. He really puts down an intro to what his character's like, his attitudes, and what he does. And the idea is basically he's an infiltrator. He kind of is a mercenary for hire, you could say. So it becomes apparent really quickly when you're looking at the map here for the Return of the Stainless Steel Rat that they went all out graphically to make this special. They obviously were fans of Harry Harrison, I think, knew him or something, because this is top notch. And then when you look at the game itself, they really tried to make it special and different than anything that anybody's ever seen. So in the game, it says there's only one way to win, but I kind of disagree. There's 2 ways to win. There's 2 levels, and there's a minor and major victory. The first thing that Jim DeGrees has got to do is deactivate the crazy computer that's gone nuts and has all the robots on the station trying to kill everybody. Not just security robots. I mean, we're talking the maids and the bartenders and the garçons. It's kind of weird and stuff like that. But that's why I hear about the Stainless Steel Rat, that it's kind of funny, and he gets in these weird situations. So the bartender, and even says in the game, that is actually firing shot glasses at you like a ranged weapon. Does nothing but stun you, really, but at the same time, getting stunned in this game can be a big deal. So anyway, and by the way, look at the counters. They're all double-sized. This is one of the reasons why I get excited for some reason when I see double-sized counters. I don't know why. It's just like it's something different. It's like, ooh, what are they doing here? Kind of thing. But then, if you do deactivate the computer, first off, that's the minor victory. Everybody's alive at least, right? But the second part is finding out who's the jerk that started it off in the first place to reprogram the computer, because that's what you find out. They've rewired it. And to do this, is it Wachowski, Stark, the Corona, Trina, the Rita, or Dr. Putz? Okay, and everybody's got their own spot in the station. Everybody else is dead. This is almost like a perfect, whodunit, right? Because you got I believe Corona was the mechanic. He's covered in grease and all that stuff. Stark is a researcher. Wachowski is I think another researcher. Rita is a barmaid. Trina is the head of the entire station, and Dr. Putz is more of an administrative man. But they all have alibis, and you're trying to find out as you go through here. You will get clues along the way to try to find out who was the killer, who set all these robots off to kill everybody. So the most interesting thing about the game is actually the tactical display, which is located in the middle of the map, of the entire space station where Jim DeGrees is pictured. It's, as you can see, it's split up into 4 different quadrants and 3 sub-quadrants. The quadrants are, of course, front, left, right, and rear. And then you have near, middle, and far. Near, of course, is where you can do your hand-to-hand combat. If they're in your front quadrant, of course, also. But also, if they're middle or far, you can only shoot at them, okay, and they can only shoot at you. So the thing is, it gets interesting here is actually the fact that it is a tactical display. So let's get into a little bit of a combat situation here. So we see you get allies and they come in with you and they're put on your left or your right near. So the Wolkowski in the pink there, he is on the left near, okay, and facing matters. So he's facing that robot. So you have to be pointing north, west, east, or south, right? They call it inward or outward, or clockwise or counterclockwise. So basically, all these guys are all around the board. So there's movement in this game, believe it or not, and it's really easy for the robots and the allies because, like, for instance, if Wolkowski wants to move forward one towards the robot that he's facing, he just goes to the middle section. Simple enough. If he wants to go to the front or the rear quadrant, he actually has to spend his turn to turn and face that before he can go. So that's another thing in this game. You only turn or you move forward. You can only move forward. You can't move backward. You can't shuffle to the left, shuffle to the right, or anything like that. You move a little bit robotically in this game. Okay, now the thing is that really gets wild is when Jim himself wants to move. Now, he's already got a security bot in front of him, which he's going to fight in hand-to-hand. But let's just say that wasn't there, and he wanted to fight the other security bot that's in front of him in the far section. He'd want to move forward, so that means anybody that's in the rear that's not already far actually goes back one. If they're already far, they don't move. The thing is, the guys in the left and the right sections do not move. Okay, and then you take the guy that's in front and you move him one step closer to Jim. Okay, so that's interesting. It really gets wild when Jim wants to do a turn. So let's say he didn't want to fight anybody at all, but he had his eyes on the security bot on the right-hand side of him. So if he wants to turn to the right, obviously you can't just turn his dial. He doesn't have a dial to move, so that means you have to move all the robots. So everybody keeping their facing would shift one quadrant. So the guy on the far right would actually be in the far front by the time Jim was done. So now we get to talk about hit points and equipment, but it's not the reason why I'm so excited about this part. This is because my favorite part of this is because I get to explain about the special statistic called the suspension of disbelief. It's an actual statistic in the game, and I had to brainstorm for a little while. I'm like, how are they going to do this? And the thing is, the suspension of disbelief, I'm sure most of you know, is that thing that when we're watching a TV series or a movie, we're really involved in it, but then something really lucky happens, but we forgive it. It's not so outlandish that we can not forgive, because if it gets too crazy or out of whack, it takes us out of the story. It's like, oh, and you start thinking about how stupid it was, right? Or how contrived it is. Well, in this game, if you accumulate more than 75 suspension of disbelief points, you've lost the game. Harry Harrison can't publish the book. It's just too outlandish. It's got to go back to the drawing board. It's beautiful. So how does that work in the game? Well, the thing is, as you can see here, there's 6 location parts on Jim's character: the head, body, arms, and legs. As they get hit, they get flipped over, and they say that he's wounded. When all 6 of them are flipped over, he's lost the game. Now, the thing is, and he's dead. But the thing is, in this game, I think they were trying to go over an idea of where if he gets hit in a certain location, that certain things he can't use or something like that. I think they nixed that idea for whatever reason, mainly because he gets beat up quite a bit, and then he'd be too weak from the accumulative effects, I think, would be the first thing. Now, maybe he may not be able to use certain equipment. I don't know. I haven't seen anything like that happen yet. But for the most part, it's just straight hit points. So if he takes a hit and you don't want him to take the hit, it costs you 5 suspension of disbelief points. And that's it. You add it to the track. Okay, and it's on that road to 25 now, or 75. Now, as far as the equipment goes, and there's a lot of equipment to pick from in this game. These are not just all the equipment you have. You get, there it is. You get all these equipments to pick from, and they're double-sided, so there's more equipment on the back. And the only thing you got to also watch out for is sometimes you pick one thing, that means you can't pick the thing on the back. So that's a little bit of a modifier too. But every one of these on the left-hand side has a number, which is the suspension of disbelief points. So I'm thinking that they do this because Jim DeGrees is kind of like a little bit of a MacGyver. He always has what he needs at the right time to solve a problem. And so basically you fill out your equipment, whether it be a breathing mask, a humidor of all things. He's known for smoking cigars, and the idea is when you smoke cigars, it blocks laser shots at you because of the smoke. It's pretty interesting. But I mean, everything costs suspension of disbelief points. So the more powerful it is, the more you got to pay. And you do find things along the way, but those are free. So alertness is another statistic that you have to actually watch when playing the game. Jim has an alertness of 9, and you're rolling against 2 dice, which isn't so bad. But as the game progresses, things may happen to him, or he gets hit in combat, which makes his alertness go down. And of course, that gets tougher, not just for things that you may encounter and need to pay attention to, but also in combat because that is your initiative score. And that's a big deal in combat because, yeah, you're fighting a bunch of goofy bartender and maid robots one time, but when you're fighting the actual security guards, they're a deadly threat indeed, and really can just wipe you out if you don't take care of them quickly. So moving around in the space station is pretty important here to understand because it's separated into 3 different decks, as we can see on the left-hand side. It says C1, C2, C3, B1, B2, B3, and so on. And gravity works, for the most part, in this station. So C deck is going to be on top of B deck, which is on top of A deck, okay? And if you get to a red part of the map, that's an elevator, and you just go right down to the next station. So otherwise, right now, if you look at the map and you're cross-referencing the numbers, Jim is currently at C330. C3, and then you move over to the number 30. C230 is the red spot there, and that means if you're on that, then you can automatically move to the next deck down, which would be the same area. It's the same 30, just in B2 instead of C2. Okay. Now, when Jim moves around, generally he goes through doors, as almost most human beings do, right? Now, the thing is, on the left-hand and right-hand side, as you can see, there are doors. Those are considered doors. But he doesn't get to go through them automatically. He actually has to make a roll. So basically, he rolls 2 dice of different colors preferably, and one die will be the first number and the second dice will be the second number. So otherwise, if you roll a 2 and a 4, it's 24. Because then you go to the book, which is all paragraph based, and you look up paragraph 24 because it's like a lot of other solitaire games out there that are adventure based. And under 24, there's a number of headings, okay? Because you're also going to roll to see what the contents of each room is, okay? But we'll just go over door right now. And you go to door, and it says if it's open or not, or if it's impassable, if it's locked, if it's electrified, all kinds of things could be there, okay? So then you have to deal with it. And then if you do go through the door, then you make another roll in a similar manner. And like I said, let's say you roll 24 again. Now you get to find out what kind of, you cross-reference that, you go to paragraph 24 and you find out, is this an industrial room or is this a common room? Is this a restaurant or a corridor? Whatever the case may be. And then it tells you what happens in that room. So Jim starts the game at any one of these entryway points on the map. That you can see a lot of them are on the opposite side of the field, but a lot of them are also very close, much closer to the computer itself. The computer, again, is the little skull and crossbones on the right-hand side of the space station map there. Of course, now you would think the quicker that you get to the computer, the quicker you can deactivate it. Well, there's 2 things about that. One, you do want to take the time to get as many allies as you can, which are the 6 people that are still on the space station that you interact with along the way, because you'll find out that allies are quite powerful and handy to have around. The second thing is, if you do deactivate it, you have to immediately find out or accuse somebody of being the guy that set the whole thing off in the first place. And you get clues along the way. There are 6 clues that you can get. Now, if you don't get the clues by the time you defeat the computer, then you have to stumble. You can use the clues that you got and try to make an accusation, but it's really helpful to have them all, and it costs you 5 suspension of disbelief points to stumble upon a clue by luck. Okay, so now let's talk about how to accuse somebody of the crime. So to figure out who's done it and stuff, they use these special chits, and these are the clue chits here. And basically, on the top, as you can see, is the number 1, and then there's 6 numbers surrounding it. Don't worry about the 6 numbers right now, but let's worry about the number 1 in the middle. And on each other chit below it, it's numbered 1 through 6 in the stack. Okay, and on the back of the entire stack, each chit has the same letter, which means when you're picking out one of these stacks by random, you're figuring out, because each one of those letters represents who did it, right? It's one of the 6 people, so you're getting all the B chits for whatever guy, and then basically, as the game instructs you, like let's say for instance it instructs you to take clue 1, you take clue 1 off that stack. The rest of the stacks, by the way, are put to the side. You don't need them, so you're only playing with one stack. So if it tells you to take stack number 1, you take stack number 1, and you also, before the game happened, you rolled randomly a certain number, and you have that in a special part on the board that to remind you what that number was, or you could just use a die. And basically, then you find out on this chit that number, that of those 6 numbers that are on the left and the right hand side, which one to consistently read. So if you roll number 3, you're going to be reading number 18, and all the other chits on the same number 3, the bottom left hand side, and that refers you to a paragraph where you read the clue. Now, to give these guys again more credit, there's a lot more than just saying, oh, you found enough clues, you know who did it. It actually takes a lot more thinking than that, because I got it wrong. I mean, it was just like, if you collect all 6 of them, it doesn't mean anything. It's not like so logical that it's obvious. It's just that you have the best way to figure things out. Okay, so everything from alibis, people saying this, people saying that. There's a lot of detective work in here, and so that is actually part of the fun. So whether you're into programmed adventures or just programming in general, you've seen a flowchart before. I just love flowcharts to a degree, just the logic and the flow and everything. And even this game has it to tell you where if a robot is on the map, what do they do in certain situations, and it just helps you figure out for solitaire play. It's pretty straightforward and you get the gist of it, but it's actually just kind of cool to see that they added it in there. Gives it a kind of a more of a science fiction feel in a way, because now you're actually helping follow a robot's program, right? It gets you a little bit immersed in there, and I like that. Now, there is a 2-player option where one player gets to play Angelina, Jim's wife, who is absolutely just as tough as nails as he is. And basically, it's a solitaire game, so it doesn't matter if it makes it that much simpler to win the game. You're just going around the board. My only thought is, what was if they actually played in the same battle? Now, granted, it's one person, then at the next. So basically, you generally do resolution before the next player can go, so that can never really happen. But I mean, I would imagine against the computer you'd want that. I mean, you could time it or something like that. You could say, okay, after 3 turns, then you can come in and surf stuff. And the thing is, the only thing that I would say is, then they would have a special counter, a double-sized counter like all the other characters and robots, and then they would go into the other person's tactical display and be able to play in there as themselves. And that way you can also make the game harder. You just double the amount of robots maybe. But then again, that might be a little bit too much, because now you're throwing 2 robots at one guy at once, not both of them all the time defending each other. So I guess you couldn't do that. But that's okay. It's just a solitaire game, and it's and like I said, I really wish they would have done something maybe with the hit locations and stuff like that. Maybe somebody else has already come up with it, and I don't know. So the game has 2 versions, of course, the Ares Magazine version, and since they bought the rights to it, they figured, hey, let's make a box set of it as well, and that's available also. Now, if it's worth $20-25, I'd say so. I mean, if you want a nice little solitaire game. Quite honestly, though, the combat system's no big deal. It's just funky to be funky for funkiness sake, really. I would rather see it played in GURPS or something like that. It's a system, a system that I would be used to, at least, to go back to, rather than having to relearn it. Because by the time I get this back to the table again, I'll feel I have to relearn the entire thing. Not that it would be that bad, but at the same time, that's just always a thing, right? And it's like an adventure like any other. And if you wanted to fight robots, you might as well do it within the Labyrinth or GURPS or any other really popular combat system that you're familiar with. But anyway, guys, that's the video, and I'll see you next time.